I genuinely feel honored to have done this particular episode. True story. Right after the episode, Gaur Gopal Das ji just paused for a minute, looked at me and said, "Hey man, I didn't expect this to be this deep. I usually have these kind of conversations with my fellow monks, but I've never done this in an interview or a podcast." And that was actually a pretty big highlight for me for my whole career. Now, I've learned a lot from this man. I had some questions which I had decided before the interview, but when I sat with him, I asked him about his story, how he actually embraced monkhood in the first place, how his thought process was prior to monkhood, how his thought process is today, how he's built one of the biggest personal brands in the country today through pure hard work, pure spreading of positivity. You're going to enjoy this episode if you're someone who chases the status of being legendary in life, if you're someone who chases constant growth when it comes to your own mind and intellect. It is a very deep episode. It is a very long episode. Timestamps are given down below. The clips are going to be put up on the Clips channel very soon. So make sure you subscribe to the Clips channel. But until then, I'm going to leave you all with this beautiful episode of The Ranveer Show featuring Mr. Gaur Gopal Das. Enjoy yourselves. Are you ready for the storm of positivity that's coming your way? We've got Gaur Gopal Das ji on the Ranveer Show. Sir, it's an honor having you on the show.
It's such a pleasure to be here with you, Ranveer, on your podcast, The Ranveer Show.
So, what has your last 10 years been like? How's it been different from the rest of your life?
The last 10 years have been the fruitful years of all what I did in the years before.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like when you construct a building, you have a foundation, and most of your time must be spent on building the foundation. If your foundation's strong, then all the other building blocks on top of it can be built in the later stage. So I think 15 years in the monastery, in the ashram, were more of a foundation.
Yeah.
And the last 10 years been the building blocks
Yeah.
in terms of reaching out, creating content which can be shared with the world, what I learned, my experiences,
Yeah.
and trying to see how it can reach out there and help transform and touch a life.
Got it.
So it's been more of the building blocks part now.
Beautiful. So, sir, in your childhood, did you ever imagine that you'll be doing what you're doing right now? Like, did you ever picture yourself like this?
In my childhood, I don't think I pictured myself as a person who'd be up there on the screen. I don't think I pictured myself as a person who's going to be a social media influencer. I didn't think I pictured myself as a leader. I did picture myself as somebody who would try to make some difference. Some impact, some difference, some impact somewhere. And I think it also came from being surrounded by people like those. Like I grew up in a middle class family in a small town near Pune. And I remember in our neighborhood, we had a gentleman who was a school teacher. And at least 4 days a week in the evenings, many students would come to his home for like classes, English grammar and spoken English. And these students were from vernacular backgrounds. And then later I found out that this gentleman doesn't charge. It was his purpose to make a difference to these kids by having them learn English. Then as I grew up, I had just around where I lived, was a group of youngsters, I would say like in the age group of about 18 to 24, 23, 24, or 50 to 60 of them. They told their moms that every single time their moms would cook rice, the moms would have to take a fistful of rice and put it in another pot, like a box. And once in a month, these 50 people would bring all the rice together, gather some money from their parents, make some khichdi or dal and rice or sambar and rice or some veg biryani, something, and go to the destitute, go to the homeless, go to the needy and the poor and share it, And then I saw my own dad at home. Like these guys were doing it like selflessly, just giving and just, they didn't have the money, but they were just collecting and doing something. My dad worked for this meteorological department of India. And I remember seeing my dad paid for the job, but really wanting to do it so well that he would stay extra hours at work. Sometimes he would go on weekly off days, to go and do his work well so that someone somewhere gets the benefit of it. So I think I was just fortunate and grateful to be surrounded by some good examples of people who either did it for free or were paid but did it so well that they all wanted to make a difference and an impact in their own. In fact, such was the experience of it. As I was studying engineering, I decided I have to try something like that. So I went around and found two 10th grade students who were really poor financially, but way too poor in mathematics. So I asked them if I could coach them and teach them mathematics. And for one complete year, I taught them mathematics 2 hours a day, every single day, 365 days, and then charged them. And they did very well at maths. And just seeing that smile on their face and their parents and the gratitude of their parents, I think that was the first-hand experience of what it means to make a difference, what it means to make an impact. And like they say, the taste of the pudding is in eating it. You can talk about it, we could listen to sermons, we could read books, we could have so much around it. But unless you taste it firsthand, I think so. That's how my childhood was. A normal child in a middle-class family, but just fortunate and grateful to be surrounded by some good examples of people who are trying their best to, make that kind of an impact.
To give back to
To
society.
give back. To
So,
give
so
back.
I understood perfectly your pudding tasting analogy.
Yeah.
But what pudding did you taste in the monastery or prior to the monastery? Like what made you think that okay, I wanna now put this world here and I wanna enter that world?
Uh, I think the pudding I tasted before the monastery was a pudding of great achievements.
Okay.
I've been a university topper practically every semester. I've seen the best. I'm a vocalist, I'm a guitarist. So when you enter into an auditorium full of people, you start singing, start striking some chords on the guitar. Academically, you're doing well. Picked up by Hewlett Packard for a great job. So tasted the pudding of achievements. Tasted the pudding of control,
Power.
power. Tasted the pudding of people respecting and bending down. When you're up there, right? You're popular in that sense. And then I come to the monastery, and it's quite amazing. Yesterday I was doing another podcast, with someone, and this gentleman was telling me that his friend, a very close friend from Delhi, he's like a music prodigy. When he was about 10 years old, he had mastered 35 musical instruments. That's like a real prodigy. And he said, grew up and he moved to Mumbai to get into the field of music. And he said, entering Mumbai was humbling for this gentleman because he thought he was someone. And then he entered into the city, which is filled with creative people who probably learned 80 instruments when they were 5.
Yeah.
And he said it was a very humbling experience. So I tasted the pudding of all of this. And I moved into the monastery with that baggage, with that ashram, that here I am a academic success, here I am a corporate success, here I am a ABC, XYZ. And I come into the monastery and you're surrounded by 30 other monks who are either the similar age as you or older to you. And each one of them from excellent academic institutions. Probably some of them were gold medalists in their field, had great corporate experience and now spiritual experience. And when I entered into the monastery, the pudding I tasted first was humility. It was more forced humility because you're coming with a baggage that you're someone and you enter into that space and you realized, hey, I thought I was someone. And suddenly the whole bubble bursts open. It's cracking the bubble open, And then with good training from my guru and the other monks around there, I learned how humility is such an incredible quality for one's spiritual growth, personal growth, professional growth. In any space you want to grow, humility is such an incredible foundational premise, because humility entails that you kind of accept, or you say that I know that I don't know it all.
True knowledge is knowing you know nothing.
Knowing that you don't know it all. Ego says I know it all, and humility says I know that I don't know it all. Humility says I know I'm good at something, but I'm not the best of everything or everyone in the world. So I enter in there and I realize there's so many people around who are way better, and that acceptance that they are better paved the way to learning. Like, don't they say, if you think you're the best person in the room or the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. So that was the taste of the pudding, the first taste of the pudding. The taste earlier was, hey, okay, everything in control, everything's going my way, and you come here and you realize, hey, wait a minute, there's so many people way better than you, who know so much more, who are way more qualified than you. I studied at the College of Engineering, Pune. Great college. It's a fantastic, very renowned and well-known college. But 10 monks in the monastery were from IIT Mumbai.
Wow.
So that's like COEP, or College of Engineering, Pune, is still second to IIT Mumbai in the country.
Yeah.
So that was the pudding I tasted, and I am grateful, very grateful, because that was like training my mind to get into that space, into that attitude of, knowing that I don't know it all.
Beautiful.
And knowing that I'm not the best
Beautiful.
of anyone or anything there.
I'm going to ask you a super youth-fueled question.
Yeah.
Have you seen this movie called Doctor Strange?
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
It's a Marvel movie about this arrogant doctor. His hands get injured in an accident, so he can't be a surgeon anymore. So he searches all over the world for a cure, and suddenly something calls him to Nepal. Something takes him to Nepal. He hears of these healers in Nepal. He enters like this so-called monastery, and he realizes that, wait, these guys are on some other level of spirituality.
Correct.
So he was a man of science, and then the world of spirituality just destroyed his whole scientific belief system.
Resonates totally with my story.
Wow. So you're a real life Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange indeed.
But so specifically in terms of like spiritual knowledge, boiled down for the youth, what did you gain from those monks in, say, your first month in the monastery? What did you realize that, this is how perspectives can be? Wait, let me destroy my own perspectives.
Yeah. I've been a pampered boy, middle class family, but only son. I had a younger sister, but the only son from a Marwadi Jain family. So, like really pampered. Everything I wanted was given. Everything I asked for was right there. A kind of spoiled brat in that sense, I never ever in my life ate a meal at home if it wasn't made according to what I'd asked for. So I only ate at home if what I asked for was cooked. Right? And I come here to the ashram, to the monastery, and I can't choose my meals. Whatever's cooked in the community kitchen and is served to everybody, I'm going to have to eat that, right? And trust me, back in the day, our ashram, our monastery didn't have enough money. So 5 days a week, they got the same vegetable, the cheapest one, and that was the curry with some rice and dal. And initially, my mind was like rebelling. I've come from a family where look pampered. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And then I come here and everything's like, I have to just conform. I have to just eat whatever's available. And then I realized, what did I come here for? Did I join the monastery or the ashram for luxurious, fine, palatable food? Or did I come here for a purpose which is much larger than these little things around my life? And then the more I started tuning into my sense of purpose, something way higher than these little things around, I realized that those things weren't bothering me that much. Not to say that they didn't bother me at all. That would be haughty to say that it didn't bother me at all. But they didn't bother me as much because now my attention was on something that I came in here for. So I always tell people, especially the youth, don't allow your minds to be distracted from what your purpose is, what your goal is. All what you go through, as in the ups and downs you experience, is only an outcome of taking your eyes off your goal. You know? So the lack of facility shouldn't depress us, and the presence of luxury and facility shouldn't distract us.
100%.
So then there was lack of facility. Today there is abundance of facility in our monastery and in our ashram. We live in South Mumbai, downtown, right? We're surrounded by luxury all over the place, you know. So then back in the day there was nothing, and today there's so much. But because the attention is on the purpose, at that time I learned from my training and from my experience there that I could actually take a lot in my stride because I kept shifting my attention to what I was meant to do.
Which was what?
Which was A, to deepen my own spiritual calling, and B, was to see how to strategize to share that spiritual experience with the world.
Got it.
You know, so kept bringing my attention constantly to that. So if you want to decode my learning from the monastic order, my spiritual path, particularly for the youth, say keep your attention and focus constantly on what you're meant to do in life, which basically means there's a need to discover what you want to do in life. If you haven't discovered, the smallest trivia can disturb you. And if you've discovered and you're focused on that, the largest setbacks can be handled and you can take it in your stride and move on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I feel that even throughout the darkest phases of my own career,
Yeah.
which has usually happened because of something happening in my personal life,
Okay.
that the spine of the career always pulls you back. That wait, there's
Yes.
too much work to be done. Can't afford to.
Aligned to that
Yeah,
sense. purpose.
100% so.
Correct.
And I think life is going to always be up and down.
Absolutely.
So you've
Absolutely.
just got to keep going.
Absolutely.
Want to rewind you back a little bit to pre-monastery days. How old were you when all this happened? Like when it began?
21.
Okay. Wow.
I just worked with HP for 8 months.
Okay. And you realize that, hold on, there's something bigger calling me. You go to the monastery and you realize, okay, this is it. At least this is the beginning of it.
This is, exploring it.
Okay.
See, I have been a non-conformist. You know, you cannot do anything substantial if you're a conformist. The greatest killer of your personal, spiritual, professional growth is conformism.
Yeah, can you make that simpler for the listeners?
Yeah. The greatest killer of our growth is to give in to what society thinks you should be doing. There are social standards of what you should be doing. Socially, it's cool to have a job or a business and start it this way and have a home in a certain place, have a certain car, wear a certain kind of clothes, have a certain kind of hairstyle. And we give in to it because we want to be socially accepted. There is also the other side of the story, which is pressure from family, parents, where there is conformism and giving in there. Because what will my parents think? मेरे parents ने मेरे लिए इतना किया है, बचपन से मुझे किया है. मेरे पापा का सपना था मैं इंजीनियर बनूं, मेरी मम्मी का सपना है मैं डॉक्टर बनूं. अरे उनका सपना है वो, और वो आपकी जिंदगी नहीं जीने वाले. Look, I'm not saying we shouldn't fulfill our parents' dreams. They're the most amazing people. They gave birth to us. They grew us up. They did so much for us. And we have that I hate to use the word duty, but I will still use it. Duty out of our genuine love and gratitude to serve them, and their emotional support, their love will always be there for us. But trust me, even if you assume that we have to spend about 8 hours at work daily, it's a very conservative number actually. To spend way more than that. But even if you have to spend 8 hours at work daily and you're working 5 days a week, that's 40 hours at work a week. And assuming you take 2 weeks of holiday every year, that's 50 weeks working, that makes 2,000 hours of yours at work. Assuming you work for about 45 years, that's 90,000 hours of your life at work. Now that's a daunting number, right? The average is about 10 years of your life. I'm really not sure if I just conform and give in to what's socially acceptable or what my family wants. 90,000 hours of dissatisfaction, 90,000 hours of cribbing and complaining that I hate it, I don't like it, this is not what I wanted to do, or what to do, this is what trends, this is what pays, this is what my parents wanted. Conformism. Conformism will take away two things from me. A, my satisfaction. 90,000 hours. Just because it's paying me more, should I be miserable for those 90,000 hours? रोता बैठो क्या मैं 90,000 घंटे? यार मैं मजा नहीं आ रहा है, इधर क्या करूँ यार, करना पड़ रहा है, ये पॉलिटिक्स चल रहा है, ये प्रेशर चल रहा है, अभी क्या करे, स्ट्रेस है, करना पड़ रहा है. 90,000 घंटे? And the second thing is you can never achieve excellence. Excellence only comes when you do something that truly resonates with your soul, you know. So for me, I said no, man. HP, yes, I'm okay. I'm good at doing it. I was good, very decently good at my work, but it's not fulfilling me, you know. And I don't suggest people take a risk like me. Definitely don't. I usually tell people that you have a mainstream something through which you earn and then follow your passion side by side so that there's no risks involved, calculated risks. And then when this takes over and grows, then chuck this out and make this as your main thing. Well, my system didn't allow me to do that, take that calculated risk. I just took the plunge and jumped in and said, no, I'm not going to do this if it doesn't really kind of resonate with my soul. You know, so I've been a non-conformist. मैं समाज ऐसा बोलता है, and of course my family was a little hurt with it. Obviously they would, right? Yeah. But now that they see what it has come out to be, they're proud.
I'm sure so. But again, and I think
I'm sure you may have your journey like that as well. Something similar, right?
Something similar. I think honestly, like right from the time engineering got done. So I'm from a family full of doctors, and even when I was 16, they told me that no, you better do medicine because it's 4 generations of doctors who are expecting the 5th one to become a doctor. As well. And I said no, I don't like blood, so I want to be an engineer. So even that was a huge deal. And right after engineering college, when I tried doing YouTube, it was a massively difficult thing to explain to my parents that there is this thing called YouTube and you know you can make money off it eventually. So what I did for the first 2 years was that I lied to them. I told them I'm working on a startup. Technically it was a startup, so I wasn't lying. It was a white lie. And eventually their friends came and told them that, you know, I just saw your son on YouTube. So what's happening? And then my parents asked me and I was like, yeah, I'm running a startup. But I was training people back then. So I was making money. My team was expanding.
It's like the Gully Boy story.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's exactly kind of what happened. So I'm honestly glad I didn't conform.
Yes.
But so I'm more interested in your monastery as of now. What was a day like there? Like, what did you all do, like, from morning to night? Well, is it true, like, that monks get up at 3 a.m.?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So my regular day starts at anywhere between 3:30 and 4, 4:15.
Even today?
Even today.
Wow.
Most days. But if I've had a late night, a flight that's landed late, would mean it goes at 1 or 2 hours later. But usually never after 6. You know, it's usually between 3:30 and 4 or so, 4 o'clock, 4:30ish. So that's when the day begins. And then we have our group meditation and prayer sessions in the ashram where we all come together, which goes all the way till 7:15.
What?
And then post that is breakfast. Then all of us come together for discussions. There's discussions on scripture, on spiritual principles. So that takes us all the way till 9, 9:15. Post that is time for yourself. Some people, since it's an organization, institution, different people do different things.
Like what?
Responsible, there's admin there. There are online courses. People are looking into the digital platform. People are looking at guests coming in. So there's a guest reception. There's dealing with the guests who are coming in. There's the deities and the murtis in the temple. There's a worship side to there. There's on any given day we have at least over about 400 people taking meals. So there's a whole kitchen which is ISO certified. So there's a variety of things that go on there. So people get into their respective areas of service or work, whatever you call it. Lunch is around 12:30ish. Then after that, again, the monks come together for some discussions. And then some of them go out in the evening to share this message with different university students.
Or some of them go on social media and put it out for the world.
That's my next point. Yeah. So I did all of this years back.
Got it.
The last, I would say, like 3.5 to 4 or 5 years, this is not my life now. My life has turned to more towards, online. So it's always creating content. And then I travel a lot. My average number of flights in a year are about 150,
Oh, wow.
180. And one particular year, I took about 280 flights in a year. So that's a lot of travel. When Jet Airways went bust, in 1 year, I had about 450,000 air miles.
Oh, wow.
That's just domestic, So
crazy.
that's crazy.
What
amount
are you
of travel.
traveling for?
I travel for events, a lot of corporate events. So I'm really, really very active in the corporate scene. So trying to bring these spiritual values into business. A lot of corporate heads are now interested in how spiritual values can be brought into business, especially creating the right work ethic, the right ethos in the organization. So I do a lot of these events, and partly my time is also taken by one-on-one life coachings. Very few people though, but I do spend time with them to handhold them to come to where they want to be,
Evolve.
So yeah, that takes a lot of my time away.
Do you meditate like before bed, like before sleeping?
My meditation is before bed. My meditation is a gratitude practice.
Like prayer.
Every evening before I go to bed is a practice of gratitude, recounting all the things that happened in the day and being grateful for everything that happened, consciously practicing gratitude. And eventually it just becomes a part of you anyways.
Yeah.
And the first thing in the morning, as soon as I am up, is also beginning my day with gratitude. And then, of course, I have a specific time for meditation as well, which I spend like an hour and a half every day.
What do you do in your meditation? Because there's so many different kinds of meditations.
Correct.
So what does someone like you do to meditate? How do you meditate?
When I came to the monastery, the meditation I was taught was mantra meditation, which is chanting on beads. So I chant a mantra. And as I began the process, I realized how challenging it was to be present into the sound of the mantra and to be totally in a space, in a zone of thoughtlessness where there's nothing bothering your mind and you're completely present and listening to the sound and totally absorbed, in the sound. I realized that it was a massive uphill task. And I think the challenge comes from the fact that we've got so used to multitasking that our mind functions on 20 tracks. So when we are just on the meditation track, there are 19 other tracks to deal with.
Yeah.
You have your personal life, you have relationship issues, you have professional issues. There's so many things going on. You have issues coming from family, so much going on in the country. There's so much that's occupying our mental space. And when you actually want to get onto the track of meditation by kind of just putting all of this in the back seat, it becomes practically impossible. And a lot of people tell me this. And when they're trying to meditate, this is what happens to them. And I share my journey with them. This is exactly what happened to me when I started. It's been 25 years now, every single day without one day's gap, 1.5 hours every day. And I tell them that it's not a challenge today. It would be very high-headed to say that, okay, I've reached a state of enlightenment. When I sit for meditation, everything's kind of there and I'm totally absorbed. Very high-headed, I feel, to say that. But I did a few things that I feel can benefit those who want to really get into a deeper state of meditation. I look at meditation in two ways. A is the meditation as in the practice. And B is everything that we do in our life as meditation. And I prefer to work more on everything in my life as a meditation, which feeds into my practice of meditation.
100%. But do not neglect the practice.
No, do not neglect the practice, for sure. Yeah. So I'll tell you what I do, for instance. 1 meal a day, I just eat by myself. 2 meals I take with my friends, some of my monk friends, where we discuss, chat, eat. 1 meal is just by myself. The reason being, I want to be present, mindful, in the moment, to savor the entire experience of touching, feeling, smelling, tasting that food. I avoid forks and spoons as much as is possible because I want to touch and feel that experience of the food. Now, the reason I do it is because it just means no phones, no books, nobody to talk to, and just being there eating. Correct? So what I'm doing is, by just eating that one meal by myself, training my mind to be in the present. Like we are talking now. There's 3 meetings lined up for me tonight. And there's a restaurant called Candy and Greens at Breach Candy. The family is a very close friend, So they've just opened up a new rooftop terrace. Been getting message after message, could you come down today evening for dinner? Right. But it's not on my mind. It's not on my mind. Nothing outside of our conversation between you and me right now is on my mind. So why do I do it? It's because right now I'm training my mind to be in the present. When I used to be in the bathroom, I would sing. Like a big thing for me used to, of course, earlier I would sing a lot of cinema and movie songs. And now I sing some spiritual songs, bhajans, whatever. And then one day I realized, hey, wait a minute. This is not right. Because neither am I into the singing, nor am I into the experience of bathing. So if I'm singing, I'm missing the experience of bathing. And if I'm bathing, I'm not into my singing. So why am I doing 2 things at the same time? I stopped singing, just focusing on the experience of the water coming down my body and experiencing that. So to me, these little things through the day matter a lot to me, and I think that's more of meditation to me, because then what I do here feeds into my mainstream practice of meditation, and what I do here feeds into the little things as well. So it's kind of a loop, one feeding into other.
Yeah. 100%. So, but specifically in the practice, could you expand on like what you do right now, like today, after you've been on the path for so long?
Yes.
So today, what is your meditation like? Is it the same thing?
Yes.
Is it you bringing back your focus into one place?
Yes, it is the same thing even today.
Okay.
Bringing my focus back into one place, which is the sound of the mantra. I think to me, it's not doing new things. It's doing the same things rightly.
Yeah.
That's what really brings results.
Yeah.
We don't need to try new things into our practice. If we have a practice and we focus on our practice and keep doing it, honing it, refining it constantly, that's when it starts paying back. If you're creating content, right, you don't have to try a million new things. Keep honing it. Excellence pays back.
Yeah, 100%.
In whatever we do.
Yeah, I want to add 2 things here.
Yeah,
the first
sure.
is a quote from Bruce Lee. He said, "The man to be feared is not he who practices 10,000 kicks once, but he who practices one kick 10,000 times."
True.
So that's one thing. And the second thing is, I feel just because of the climate of the country right now, as in the political climate and all this, a lot of people kind of look down on the practice of meditation as being like something overly religious. Or, even when you mention the word mantra, people automatically, a lot of people, especially in urban centers, kind of draw out negative connotations of a mantra.
Sure.
Ki, oh, are you saying that other religions aren't good? Like that's how a lot of people think. In saying that, remember that meditation uses a mantra, but you can also just simply focus on your breath. You can focus on a mantra from your own religion.
Sure, of course.
Like a chant from your own religion. That's what people fail to understand.
Yes.
And keeping that in mind, my next question to you, sir, is that do you face any kind of, I'm sorry for not finding a better word for this, but do you face any kind of disrespect or any kind of a backlash for the color you wear or for the tikka you're wearing? Do you face any kind of disrespect, when you enter, say, a corporate park and people reject you automatically?
Yeah.
So have you experienced this?
I think earlier it was kind of like that. When I just started my journey of sharing it with the corporate world, there was a little bit of, not necessarily disrespect would be a strong word. I would say discomfort. I would probably call it discomfort, that what's this guy doing here, kind of a thing. And plus my attire is like a religious attire in one sense. I have a big thing on my forehead, my hair, everything's like quite religious. I think over a period of time, people have seen the content we've been sharing online, which has nothing to do with religion, which has nothing to do with any faith, which has nothing to do with anything of that sort at all. All our content is completely related to life
And humans.
And wisdom that can transform life. So which is precisely why our following online is a very secular following. Right? We have people from all faiths, all nationalities, all genders, all kind of sexualities, everybody following us, because nobody feels intimidated, nobody feels threatened. That, okay, is this guy kind of trying to impose a certain faith or religious belief on us. So what I'm trying to do is very faith and religion agnostic, actually. So which is precisely why people have kind of now seen us that this is not who he is. So now that discomfort is totally gone.
Got it.
So people don't feel that any longer.
So, but what is the significance of the saffron and the tikka?
Okay.
Like, what is the significance of it?
Okay, thank you for asking that one. What's the significant? I was in London once walking at Soho Street, Oxford Street near Soho Square, and one British gentleman, came up to me and said, "Is that your favorite color?" Because everything's orange.
Yeah.
I said, "I guess so." I didn't, of course, want to explain to him the deeper significance of what it meant. He didn't want to know.
Yeah.
He just wanted to know if it was my favorite color. I said, "Yeah, I guess so." I think orange represents flames of fire. On one hand, it represents flames of fire. And in the Hindu tradition, when somebody leaves this world, they're cremated. The body is kind of burnt, consumed by the flames of fire. So donning saffron on actually means that I am dead to my own personal interests. It's like these flames of fire have consumed my own selfish interests. And now on, my life is meant to be for the betterment and welfare of others.
It's like you're killing your own ego.
Killing your own ego, yes.
Got it.
And it's kind of now living for others.
Got it.
But that's what it's meant to be. Of course, it's a lifelong journey to live by it. But that's what it signifies. The other aspect of saffron also is like you have saffron as in kesar, the saffron strands. So you take saffron strands. If you've ever added saffron strand to a prep, you usually kind of first roast it a little bit on a pan to take the moisture off. And then you take a little bit of milk and crush it hard in that little tiny bowl of milk. And it starts leaving all the color and the fragrance and the flavor. And then you add it to whatever prep, you just add that saffron to it. So if you compare someone's life to saffron, the strands, then it also means to be a little bit crushed a little bit, roasted a little bit by life, to be able to add color, fragrance, and flavor to the lives of others. So that's what it really means. Of course, a long way to go to be able to live like that, but that's what it signifies.
Yeah. You're basically using your own experiences, sharing,
Share.
at the same time killing off the ego.
Yes.
Is that why monks also shave their head? Is that a part of...
Yes, but monks, there's both sides. It's like in both sense, some people have long hair. Monks have long hair and long beards as well. And some monks shave off their heads as well. Buddhist monks will shave their heads off. The Krishna faith monks will shave their heads off. Yet you'll find Himalayan monks who have long hairs and long beards. I think either or, whichever way, it's a practice of detachment. Like if you're shaving it off means, okay, hair is an important part of the body and you groom your hair well, so it gives you a certain look. So, okay, I'm kind of rising above it. And if you see monks who have long hair and long beards, even that's a sense of detachment. And I don't care grooming them. So you don't find monks who are have long hair and they go to salons to kind of style their hair. So both kind of signify a sense of detachment from your personal life and your bodily kind of concept. Yeah.
And may I ask you about the tikka as well? Like
This particular tikka?
Yeah.
Yes. So since I follow the Krishna faith, so if you go to a church or a temple or a mosque or any of these places of worship, you will see, or even a government organization for that matter, you will see a flag or an emblem right at the top. Like if you go to the parliament, you'll see any government building has a flag on top. It kind of gives you a sense that this property belongs to the government of India. Or a temple, this property belongs to a temple or a mosque or a church or whatever, So this kind of a tikka or this kind of a mark put right on top kind of signifies that you're now living a life which is in adherence or affiliation to a certain faith.
Got it.
So this is now for the Krishna faith. Some people will put it like this, right? And in the Islamic faith, they'll have a cap or they will have a certain mark or a certain way of the beards or mustache. Christians will have they'll probably put a cross in their neck, certain kind of rituals. Yesterday, I was even talking about this to somebody and I was saying, some guy asked me, in London, what is the need for rituals in religion? Whichever faith. And I said to him, why are we even talking about rituals as a part of religion? Rituals are a part of life. Right? Like 2 weeks back was Valentine's Day. Guys went to girls, giving them rose flowers. Giving a rose to a girl is a ritual, but it conveys how you feel to that girl. Saying I love you, language is a ritual. But language is a ritual meant to help you communicate the feelings of your heart to the person whom you're communicating to. Giving a gift to someone is a ritual. Right? But that gift just tells that person that, okay, you mean a lot to me. Singing a birthday song or cutting a birthday cake is a ritual. But it just means telling the other person your birthday matters a lot to me. Man United and Chelsea are playing a game and Man United wins and the whole Wembley Stadium is rumbling, glory, glory, Man United. Everybody is singing. It's a ritual. But that song tells the Man United team how much their fans adore them. Correct? So I was telling this guy in London, I don't think it's about religion. Life is full of rituals. Now imagine a guy going to a girl, giving her a rose and saying, I love you, honey, and not meaning it at all. Correct? Now, if you see the first three letters of the word spirit, they are S-P-I. Correct? Now, you add the first three letters S-P-I to ritual, it becomes spiritual.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Now, as soon as the first three letters, which means the spirit is gone, what you have is a mere ritual. So somebody coming and saying to a girl, I love you, without meaning it, is ritual. But if it's really meant from the deepest core of the heart, it's a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So I think every faith, like every aspect of life, will have means to communicate how they feel to whether they call God, whether they call it universe, whether they call it energy, whether they call it power, or whether they call it nothing. You know what I mean? But there's a means to communicate your genuine feelings, and that's when then this different rituals kind of come into existence. So whether it's a mark on the forehead or beads in your neck or a certain kind of attire or a certain kind of practice that you adopt, it's all meant to be able to express but once the spirit is gone, though, what we have is a mere set of rituals, which is what more or less religion kind of today is seen as, and which is why a lot of youth doesn't even want to look at that side, because they see it simply as a set of mere rituals without the spirit there being there. But I think if we can actually get deeper into what the spirit behind it is, a lot of it will actually start making a lot of sense.
100%. So, so like, why do you think we see, especially in our country, a big reason the youth is not for spirituality as a concept is because a lot of the youth associate spirituality with the whole, the Baba culture. That's what they call it.
Correct.
So, firstly, why do you think that Baba culture exists in the first place? And secondly, how can we get that section of youth back into understanding the true meaning of spirituality?
Correct. Firstly, we were talking about religion and spirituality, right? It's very fashionable to say these days, you know what, I'm not religious.
But I'm spiritual.
I'm spiritual. Hang on, man. Do you know the meaning of the word spiritual? Not being condescending, but it's quite fashionable to say that. I'm not religious, I'm very spiritual. But I'm not too sure even if people even know what the fine line is. I don't think there's a difference between religion and spirituality if the spirit is existing. Then every ritual is also spiritual. But as soon as the spirit is gone, that's ritualistic religion.
100%.
So I think with the question about Baba culture and all of that stuff, in every aspect of life, we need mentors, guides, teachers, gurus. Like if I were to learn singing, I would need someone from the Hindustani Gharana side of music or from the Carnatic side of music to teach me what music is. You would have exceptional people like Ranu Mondal, who's like, on the railway station somewhere singing, gifted. These are people who are probably gifted and never trained, but they're exceptions. The general rule is we need to be coached and mentored into learning something, right? I don't think spirituality is an exception as well. Where we need gurus or guides or mentors who will teach us and lead us onto that path. Now, the issue is when the spiritual leaders or coaches or gurus or mentors become the focal point or the center point, and the spiritual wisdom that they're teaching goes at the back seat. Then it becomes cultist. What's a cult? A cult is where the figure becomes the center and the message and the practice and the wisdom goes at the back.
100%.
Correct? Now contrast that with the wisdom coming to the front and the person saying, okay, I'm here to lead you, I'm here to train you, I'm here to guide you, but this is what you should be connecting to. Correct?
That's your real guru.
That's your real guru. Wisdom is your real guru. I'm simply the mouthpiece. I'm simply the microphone. Yes, because I'm the front face, you'll be attached to me. Yes, because I'm a front face, you're going to be attracted to me. Yes, because I'm a front face, you're going to connect to me. But there's way beyond me, something way beyond me, wisdom, knowledge, spiritual forces, powers, and I simply represent them. 100%. As soon as you have teachers and gurus and guides who do that, I don't think the youngsters have a problem with that at all.
100%.
They don't deny the fact that we need mentors. They're just frustrated and disgruntled with the fact that, like they say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And trust me, the power that spiritual leaders can have, nobody in the world can have. And the simple reason being, they've renounced a lot. They had money, they had opportunities, they put it all to the side and took to a life like this. So you will have the biggest industrialists, the biggest in the cinema world, the biggest in the sports world, coming to the spiritual leaders and sitting at their feet and seeking guidance. When power, money, followers come to you,
Yeah.
even if you started with a noble purpose, it's easy to kind of get carried away.
100%.
So I feel like your second part of the question was, what do we do to,
Pull them back.
pull them back? I think we need spiritual leaders who are not attached to their face, who are not attached to their name, who are not attached to their institutions. We need spiritual leaders who are truly, truly wanting to bring wellness to the world, and people who kind of clearly profess and say that, look, it's not about me. It's about what I'm trying to teach. And even in what I'm trying to teach, it's up to you if you want to choose this path.
Yeah.
There's no imposition.
100%.
So I think if you have that kind of an aspect available,
Yeah.
I do feel that the youngsters will kind of be back. So we need more of such spiritual leaders.
100%.
Actually.
So I want to add two things to what you said.
Yeah.
The first is that I genuinely believe that we are moving into an age like that where we are seeing
Absolutely.
more ethical spiritual
Correct.
leaders.
Correct.
And the second thing I want to add is a learning of mine since I left college. It's been 5 years since I left college. And the one big learning of my life has been that throughout your life, you're given a lot of tests.
Correct.
And these are usually ethical tests.
That's right.
Things that test your behavior, things that test what you'll do in a particular situation. Now, the thing is, if you choose to be on a spiritual path, the nature of what happens to life is that the frequency of those tests increases. You're given more and more tests and more difficult tests. Where, say, if you do become a spiritual leader per se, you are given that power.
Sure.
So then it's easier to get your way. It's easier to do the unethical thing because it's the more fun thing to do.
Sure.
Now, a lot of spiritual leaders, what I believe is that they initially start with the correct intent. They start with the intent of spreading wisdom. But as they themselves grow spiritually, life tests them. And maybe somewhere they fail the test, and that's why you see downfalls. Or, if someone retains the power, it usually means that they've passed the test.
Sure.
And I also believe that even if the spiritual leader is 120 years old, he's still going to get tests even then.
200%.
Yeah.
200%.
So, what do you have to say about that, sir?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement of what you're saying. And I think there are 2-3 kinds of people who, spiritual leaders who some come on the path to use it.
As in?
They come to make this as a profession.
Okay, got it.
They're not spiritual leaders at all. They see that it works well. It's the easy way out. They don't want to do what's right. They want to do what's easy.
How do you spot that? How do you say that?
That's precisely why so many issues happening, right? That's the Baba culture that we're talking about. Correct?
100%.
Then there are second kind of the second variety is those spiritual leaders who come on the path. And exactly what you mentioned, the tests do come. And although they were kind of totally tuned into their purpose, can get a little carried away, go astray, maybe come back, maybe not, whatever. And third are the ones who actually have passed the test of time and have kind of really remained grounded and level-headed and, been like beacons of inspiration to the world.
100%.
But yes, tests are there for each and every single one. Whether you're a spiritual leader or not, ethical dilemmas will always be there. And I'll tell you, moral dilemmas are choosing between right and wrong. That's easy. Ethical dilemmas are choosing between right and right or wrong and wrong.
Right and more right.
Right and more right, wrong and more wrong. And that's where you kind of really test it.
Yeah.
So we all have those dilemmas. And my understanding is when any leader, not just spiritual leader, political leaders, corporate leaders, spiritual, these principles are true for all.
And everyone's
not
tested.
just spiritual leaders.
Yeah.
The spiritual leaders, just because the conversation is about spiritual leaders, we're saying it, but it's true for every leader. When power comes, facility comes, there is a tendency to get isolated and start living in the ivory tower. Where you're not open to learn from others, you're not open to connect to equals. The one thing that successful leaders in any field need the most is equal friendship.
Okay.
Because in front of your superiors, if you have anybody like you look up to, you're always going to put up a face, your image, which is like great. And in front of people who are younger to you, you're going to always put up an image which is going to impress them. Like, so everything good about me. But in front of equals, where you have friends, and people know you in and out, there's very less pretension there. People who are superior and inferior, there's a lot of pretension on both fronts. When people you're equal and you have good relationships and friendships, there's very less scope for pretensions, and that's where you kind of have to be open to listen to feedback from your peers and your equals.
Even if it's harsh.
Which usually it is.
Yeah, 100%.
Which usually it is.
Yeah.
And which is precisely why the biggest danger for anybody is to have no one who can kind of correct you. If you feel that I'm beyond anybody's correction any longer, that is when then there is a lot of scope for kind of being dragged down, carried away by what.
That's where downfall begins.
That's where the downfall begins.
So, like, I strongly believe that, the youth, a lot of them will understand the true meaning of spirituality a little bit into the spiritual journey.
Yes.
But a lot of them, initially, you need to show them that fruit, that, this is what you'll get from
Indeed.
it. So, why should a 20-year-old in today's day and age or a teenager, why should they take up something like meditation or even just read or get to know more about the spiritual path? What's in it for them?
Correct.
So what have been your learnings? Like, what can it add to your material life, your professional life, your career, your relationships?
Sure,
What can spirituality add?
Sure. Your material in your professional life, for example, if a 20-year-old still at university wants to excel in his or her course, imagine you practice meditation and what we were talking earlier on, mindfulness, where you learn to be in the present. You can imagine when your systems get conditioned and habituated and trained to be in the present, that's exactly what's called concentrate. What concentration means, right?
Focus.
Focus, concentration. And most students will complain that I'm not able to focus, I'm not able to concentrate. So the immediate result of meditation and mindful practices is your focus and your concentration, whatever you do, improves. Whether it's your study, whether it's your work, whatever you do, it improves. Right? That's A. B is most youngsters are in relationships today. Right? Most youth is in relationships. Now, in relationships, the biggest killer of a meaningful relationship is expectations. The more you expect, the more you're disappointed. The more you're giving, the more it works in your favor. And it's very difficult to be giving. It's easy to expect from a person. And why am I expecting from that person? Because my sense of joy, my sense of happiness, my sense of validation comes from that other person. So I'm expecting a lot. Imagine if you were meditating and connecting very deeply to yourself, and you're finding that self-validation, that self-worth, right? And you are not too dependent on it from somebody else, you would be in a position to give more to the other person.
100%.
In which case your relationships get better because now you're not so much dependent. तूने ऐसा बोला तो मुझे अच्छा लगेगा, तूने ऐसा नहीं कहा तो इसलिए ऐसा नहीं हुआ, लेकिन ऐसा नहीं किया, तूने उस दिन फोन नहीं किया, तूने उस दिन मैसेज नहीं किया, तूने उस दिन, you know how it is. Right? How it goes on this, especially in the youngsters. So as soon as you start finding it within, then you know that if it comes, fantastic, right? And it'll come. But there'll be those days where it won't. So then you don't get disturbed because somebody doesn't validate you. And that's true for social media as well. That's true for social media as well. The more deeply connected you are to yourself, the more you find your own value, your own worth. You don't need anybody to give you that sense of worth. Your worth is not based on likes, comments, and shares. Your worth is based on who you are. And then likes, comments, and shares are wonderful. They add value. Nothing wrong with likes, comments, and shares. Nothing wrong with a girlfriend or a boyfriend sending a beautiful message. But the day it doesn't come, I know how guys feel. The day there is a heartbreak, I know how guys feel.
Yeah, that's precisely my next question. I'm going to ask you about breakups, sir.
Please.
I'm sure you get that a lot. Breakups, and more specifically, I want to talk about like harsh breakups, like intense breakups, because I get a lot of DMs all day. So on my Hindi channel, I've got a playlist called Aapka Love Guru, okay, and where I teach people like relationship advice. But this is a topic I've not really spoken about. Very intense breakups, where say a relationship is going stable and then one person cheats all of a sudden. So how does the cheated person deal with that? Like the person who's been cheated on. I understand that first you shouldn't have had expectations, but chalo, मान लो
वो तो बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया बोलना.
मान लो you've had expectations.
Correct.
You think you're going to marry the person and then they cheat on you.
Correct.
So what do you do in a situation like that when life beats you down that bad?
I know. Oh man. I'll tell you what. As human beings, we are all going to be emotionally affected when things like that happen to us. So firstly, understand that it's okay to feel that. Sometimes we try to fight it out. I shouldn't feel like this. And in fighting that emotion out, that negative emotion out, we are actually losing so much energy in fighting the negative emotion out that we're not actually being able to fight the actual problem.
Which is?
Which is now dealing with what has happened to you. Now what's next? But no, I shouldn't feel like this. Mujhe kuch lena dena nahi hai. You know that internal dialogue? So I think it's okay to go through that negative emotion. Firstly, it's all right. And you don't have to, especially, I want to say this especially to men. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you're not vulnerable to negative emotions. There's no need to put up a tough face and saying, I'm okay, I'll face it, I'm handling it, whereas internally you're a nervous wreck.
Yeah. I think men put pressure on themselves to heal fast.
Yeah.
But I think you should give yourself some time.
Give yourself the time and understand that it's a part of the journey. Imperfections are beautiful. We are imperfect. None of us are perfect human beings. And these kind of situations come to all of us in our own respective ways. In particular, right now we're talking about relationship between, young guys and girls. So I think acceptance that this will happen is step one of the healing process. Go through it. Cry tears if you want to. Cry tears if you want to. Accept your negative emotions. Don't just keep fighting them all the time. It's okay to say I am depressed. Even to say that I'm depressed because of the heartbreak needs courage, actually. A lot of people don't want to admit that. Accept it, admit it. That's step one of the healing process, And then step two is to, different things can be done, but step two is actually to find out someone with whom you can really confide. Because step one is dealing with it within yourself. But step two is to have someone, a friend, family, whoever, someone trustworthy, someone close, to whom you can just go and pour out. Pour out unedited, uncensored. Just vent out all those emotions. लग रहा है ना जो बोलना है बोलूंगा मैं. Otherwise, you always have to worry about, will I be judged for what I said? Will there be confidentiality about what I said? What if this guy goes and tells her? Or what if guy goes and tells him? Or what if that guy judges me for ये तो crude है, ये 4 गाली बोल दिया इसने ये बोलते. You know what I mean? So I think it's good to open up to someone and just vent out. Uncensored, unedited. As it is, how you feel. It just makes you feel light because everything's come out. Otherwise, you're just carrying it along with you. 100%. Right? The third thing, step 3, is to really start looking at what's the next thing to do. हो गया ना अभी ये. You're not going back, correct? Now the third step may take time. May take 2 weeks, it may take 2 years. Who knows? Everybody is a different individual. Their healing times are different. Everybody has different kind of upbringings, different kind of coping capacities. Correct? So whatever time it takes, but it's important to see how to move on to the next step of life. Would it be another relationship? Would it be no relationship? Would it be what? Would it be what? If it's a relationship, it shouldn't be just based on some emotions from the past, based on proper reason. If it's no relationship, it shouldn't just be based on emotions ki pehle aise hua abhi nahi chahiye. It should be based on proper reasons and rational. So I think we need help in that kind of a journey. So these are 2-3 things, of course, and all through spirituality again helps a lot. All through meditation, chanting, whatever that may be, it kind of helps you declutter a little bit of what you're going through.
It accelerates your healing.
Accelerates your healing, indeed. But well.
Yeah, 100%. So about spirituality again, what are like 3 profound spiritual experiences that you yourself have had? Because if someone's thinking about a spiritual journey like meditation, like, encountering, say, ghosts or, even that's an aspect of spirituality. Have you had any larger than life experiences in your own life?
I don't think I count on those, to be very honest. To me, spirituality is about how it transforms my living,
Your daily life.
my daily life, my perspectives, my worldviews, my outlook towards relationships, my outlook towards the work I do. How does it transform that? That experience is more to me than some
Supernatural.
natural or some occult kind of experiences. Not to say that you don't have them, but I don't count on them too much.
Got it.
For me, spirituality is a life-transforming journey than some occult and supernatural experiences.
Got it. So like when someone's talking to you personally, and this is because I'm a podcaster, my job is to dive deep into people's minds.
Sure.
I just feel like you have too much perspective. And I am dead sure that that's a result of a lot of reading. I'm sure you've had spiritual learnings at the monastery. But I'm dead sure that a lot of those perspectives have come straight out of not just holy books, but all kinds of books. But in saying that, let's talk about holy books. Have you read the Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
And so like, could you break down the Bhagavad Gita for the youth? Like, what's in that book? Why do people say that you open any page of it and you'll get your answer? Why do people say things like that?
Sure. I think the first thing to know is let's remove the religion aspect from the Bhagavad Gita totally. Bhagavad Gita is not a religious book. It is a book which gives you the way to live, right? And the setting for the Bhagavad Gita is the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Mahabharata, where Arjun's confused, right? And Krishna becomes his mentor and gives him guidance in a way that he can now start doing what he's meant to do right. So every young man or lady is going to have confusions. Every young person is going to have those dilemmas, right? To do or not to do, to be or not to be. That's exactly how the Gita begins. It begins with confusion. It begins with dilemmas. It begins with a lack of meaning, right? And then Krishna kind of guides Arjun through and empowers Arjun to make his own choices. Krishna only acts as a facilitator, right? And empowers Arjuna to understand that he is way too more powerful than the people he's going to face in the battle. It's something like the Lion King, right? In the Lion King, you have Simba. But Simba in company with Timon and who's the other fellow?
Timon and Pumbaa.
Pumbaa and Timon, kind of starts identifying himself to be like one of them. And then you have this Rafiki, that's right, Rafiki, coming to remind him and calls for his father, and his father comes and tells him that you are way more powerful than Scar. Correct? So we need, every young man and lady needs to understand that they are way more powerful than what they are going through at the moment. Their confusions are smaller than them. Their challenges are smaller than them. Their problems are smaller than them. Their heartbreaks, as painful as they are, but are still smaller than them and they have the capacity to overcome those pains that they're going through. So I think that's precisely where books like the Gita help a lot, because they build in you that sense of confidence
And strength.
fortitude, that I have the power as a spiritual being to overcome everything that's going on in my life, and I have the power to be able to make the difference and that impact, because I am a spiritual being.
Can you reference like 3 big lessons from the Bhagavad Gita that stayed with you specifically?
Yes. One of the lessons that stayed with me from the Gita is a particular text from the 2nd chapter of the Gita, which talks about the summer and the winter season, right? And this particular text says that the summer and the winter season keeps coming and going every year. Seasons change. And just because the seasons change, we never stop performing our duties. All right? Let's say, for example, it's Chicago and the temperatures are minus 27 degrees Celsius. People don't stop their work still. Let's say it's Delhi, it's 43 degrees Celsius. People are still on and going on with their regular life with a few adjustments here and there, obviously. So this text of the Gita, chapter 2, tells us that we have to learn to tolerate the ups and downs and not be distracted from what our main purpose is. So that's something that stayed with me a lot. Tolerate what you're going through. And tolerance means, like when we talk about tolerating failures and pains, we can understand. But we also have to learn to tolerate our success and the good times, because both distract us. You know, usually we only look at the negatives as distractions, but even the positives distract us from what we are meant to be doing. 100%. That's something that really kind of stayed with me. The second thing that I really kind of resonate with in the Gita is a verse from the 6th chapter, which talks about the mind being a friend or an enemy to you. It depends on how you deal with the mind.
Okay.
Right? If you befriend your mind, the mind will become your friend and will empower you to do what you want to do. But if you don't deal with it rightly, then the mind will become your enemy and will lead to your downfall. I'll give you an example, very relevant to the youth. Right? For example, you want to get up early in the morning to go for a jog or for a workout because you know you want to be fit. You know your days are busy, and you decide this is going to be my plan for the year 2020. Correct? You set up the alarm clock to wake up early in the morning, like 5, 6, whatever. And when the alarm goes, what's the mind saying? The first thing, you slept late last night, take it easy. Or maybe we can do it beginning tomorrow. Or maybe this is not the right thing for you to do. The mind's constantly playing games, right? Now, if you have a mind which is constantly giving these kind of reasons, you're not going to wake up. Right? On the other hand, if you learn to train your mind using the proper intellectual process, right, proper spiritual process, your mind can be your greatest asset and your friend.
Which is meditation, good books.
Meditation, books, right?
Correct friends.
The right kind of company. All of these are inputs so that your mind kind of becomes a friend. So that's the second thing that really kind of resonates with me. And the third thing from the Gita that connects to me a lot is, how do we start looking at the presence of divinity everywhere in every aspect? We don't have to necessarily go to a place of worship to look at the presence of divinity. You can look at the presence of divinity in nature. You can look at the presence of divinity in other people. You can start looking at the splendor of the creator or the creation. Or you can start looking at the splendor of the creator in the creation. You know, which is precisely why this is something not as easy, but something that I usually tell people is, when you look at somebody who's better than you, you know, and especially if they are in the same field, usually there is insecurity. There's insecurity that this guy is doing better than me in what I am doing. Or there is envy, jealousy. Sometimes it goes to the extent of sabotaging that other person's work as well, you know. And it has happened in the world, happens all the time. So when you start looking at divinity in creation, you start looking at how divinity has empowered somebody to do something in a special way that person has been gifted by higher powers, right? And to sabotage that person's work or to be envious about that person or to feel insecure means actually insulting somebody who's given that gift to him, you know.
100%.
But if I look at that person and derive inspiration from that person, I can seek that inspiration to follow my aspiration. You know, so that aspect of the Gita also kind of really resonates with me, that you start looking at divinity everywhere and in every place around you, including people who are doing better, because it's not them. You can see straight away. Very often I see people who do remarkable stuff, and they usually, when they speak, they say it's they doing it, and of course they're doing it. No doubt that there's a part that they're doing, but you can tell that there's something beyond them that's kind of making them do it. Whether it's acting, speaking, singing, something. There's an element which is not necessarily effort, not their effort. You know,
X factor.
X factor. And when you start appreciating that X factor as divinity, oh, that's something that really kind of connects to me as well.
My absolute favorite verse from the Bible is Philippians 4:13. I've actually got a tattoo
Really?
about Philippians
Wow.
4:13, and the verse says, "I can do all things through Him who gives me strength." So that kind of resonates with that same idea that any kind of creative process is not entirely yours. You are just a channel. So the second thing I want to ask you is now I'm getting coached through this session. That this podcast, every podcast is a coaching session for me, but this one especially.
It's mutual, isn't it?
Thank you. I mean, like, I don't know if I should say thank you because it's actually the divinity talking through me. No. But so when I know you coach a lot of top business leaders, a lot of top corporate leaders, when someone's reached that top and they become alphas of their field and when they become kings of their field, what kind of coaching do they need? Because they've done something right to get there. So other than that whole thing about success getting to the head and staying humble,
Correct.
what else do you coach them with?
Yeah, I think what happens is once you reach there, you realize that now you're simply there in the number game.
As in?
Now you're in the first 10. Correct? Now the question is, if you're one, how to maintain that one? If you're not one, how to be the one? Right? If you're in the first 10, you want to be the first. If you are the first, you want to maintain the first. That's how it is. So most people realize that that's not what it is all about. The more you go up there, you realize that there should be something much larger in my life than this. So loads of people who have reached heights of success are looking for meaning and purpose.
And ability to create impact?
Yes, of course. That's their purpose, right? Ability to create an impact through what they're doing, whether it's through coaching people, whether it's through opening nonprofits, whether it's whatever aspect, but to really kind of go out there and make a difference. So I do see that that strong kind of a desperation in people who have reached there, that we really want meaning now to our lives. And then that's where they kind of look at coaching. And then I also think they have a personal life, relationships, personal life. I must tell you something, that when you're really wanting to be up there, often it comes at a massive cost. Your own personal life, your relationships, so much has to be put into the background to be able to really get up there, which is not what I really recommend. But people do that. And then there's a lot of backlash that comes from there, a lot of unhealed areas of their lives, personal and relationships, which is where then they need a lot of work. So, yeah.
So, but what in them is making them strive that hard for that number one?
Yeah, I think it's kind of intoxicating, Ranveer.
Nasha.
नशा है जी, नंबर्स एक नशा है. सोशल मीडिया पे नंबर्स क्या है? एक नशा है बस. वो जो इतने वीडियोस देख रहे हैं, कितने वीडियो व्यूज में से कितनों ने पूरा देखा है? यूट्यूब पे कोई वीडियो देख रहा है, उसमें अगर 15 मिलियन व्यूज है, उसमें कितनों ने एक्चुअली पूरा वीडियो देखा है? और उसमें से कितनों ने उस वीडियो का कुछ कंटेंट लेके कुछ जिंदगी में किया है? You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So numbers is intoxicating, whether it's social media, whether it's money, whatever, followers, number of followers, even physically, number of followers, like leaders having huge following and people there. it's very intoxicating. So once you chad jati hai na, utarti nahi hai आसानी से. You drink alcohol, it comes down in a couple of hours, But the intoxication of numbers and this kind of achievements, it's very hard to kind of come down from it. So, and it's not that people don't know. A part of them is telling them, this is not the right way to live. But it's just so easy to just bask into that space, of I'm the king, I'm number one, But then when I see some of these super successful giants in their private space, very genuine people, extremely genuine people. Some of them are not necessarily intoxicated. Some are not. And those who are not intoxicated in their private space, they're just the most amazing human beings. But out there, now they're in the game. It's kind of keeping the game going.
What about their partners, their wives, their spouses? Like, what kind of role do they play?
Yeah. I think when you have a spouse who's like really grounded and, great support for someone who's up there like that, that's the greatest asset for people like that. Greatest asset. So that's when you don't necessarily like life coaching kind of a thing. Because if someone who's been there with you through that journey, and has kind of kept you grounded and level-headed and kind of
Anchored your life.
Anchored your life and given you that space to open up, confide, be yourself. I'll tell you what, the higher up you go, usually, I'm not saying it's all the time, but usually you just have to put up a face most times. You're not yourself as a public figure.
You have to wear a mask.
You have to wear a mask. Most public figures are not who they are when they're in public. And rightly so or wrongly so, I don't know, it's their lives. And at the same time, you have to kind of do what you need to do. But there has to be a space where you're just you, with no masks at all, no pretensions at all. My guru, Radhanath Swami, is the author of this book, The Journey Home, beautiful book. And when I joined the monastery, ashram, one thing he told me is, he said, you have this element to do something, you should do it. And he said to me, you should be a lion at chase and a lamb at home. When you're out there, you should be a lion at chase, conquer frontiers, reach out, share the message, go out there, don't compromise on your ambition to grow. And this ambition to grow is not for myself, but to spread the message, whatever, but growth. So if you don't have ambition to grow and reach out, you're not going to get there. So have that. But at the same time, be a lamb at home. When you come back with your peers, with your friends, just be yourself. Where there's no pretension, where there's no mask, where there's no nothing. So I think if you have someone like that, very successful, has a partner, life partner, which is such a privilege and a strength to a person like that,
So one thing I strongly believe is that everyone is born with their own strengths and weaknesses in life. But my question to you is that, does everyone have that capability within themselves to become, if not a billionaire, at least a multi-millionaire in life? Can everyone achieve that if they kind of put their mind in the right place, their body in the right place, their friends in the right place?
Sure. Have you ever seen water bottles? Like steel, glass. Some water bottles are like 500 ml capacity, some are like a liter, some are 1.5 liter. Now each one has their capacity, correct? And each one can be filled up to the brim, correct? Now if a 500 ml bottle tries to fill itself with a liter of water, it's not possible because the capacity is 500. So each one has a certain capacity, correct? And self-discovery is about trying to figure out what your capacity is and to function to the optimum of your capacity. So if you have a 500 ml water bottle and if it's only filled up to 200 ml, you're not using it to its optimum space capacity, right? So how can I bring it to 500? Is the question. So yes, I may not have that capacity to probably be a billionaire, but I may still have the capacity to be a millionaire. But I'm not playing my best. I'm not giving my best. So I'm still not even close to be anywhere close to be a millionaire. So I don't think it's about billionaire, millionaire, or not being a millionaire. I think it's about really functioning to the optimum of our own capacity. So, which is precisely why reflection and introspection is important, because it helps us understand our own selves. And I see that we do things without understanding ourselves. We don't understand what our capacities are. We don't understand what our passion is. We don't understand what our abilities are. And we just kind of keep doing things. So, where are we heading then? Correct? But once you identify it, you know, this is what I need to work on to grow. And grow how much? To as much as my capacity is. And how do you know I've reached my capacity? There's a ceiling limit. Beyond that, you know you cannot. You keep trying for 25 years, but you know that this is how much, this is kind of the ceiling upper limit now.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Also, the ability to break your own ceilings. That's something I mean, some people have it, some people don't.
Correct.
Very few people have it. And that's
Correct.
something I learned from the late, great Kobe Bryant.
Sure.
It's something that stayed with me very long back, where I think when I was starting out YouTube, I would always put caps on myself.
Correct.
When I started out, I only wanted to build it to 2,000 subscribers so that I could market some fitness products. Then it became 100,000 subscribers because my favorite YouTuber had only 100,000 subscribers.
Correct.
Once we crossed that, I kept putting limits on myself.
Sure.
Now, I genuinely feel YouTube is a great teacher in life. Like, I've not done an MBA, but I feel like I know as much as an MBA in terms of knowledge and wisdom.
Sure.
Because I've been running this community myself. It's given me a lot of life lessons. And the one thing that resonated with me a lot was what Kobe Bryant said about don't put ceilings on yourself. Even if you think you have a subscriber ceiling, you don't have an impact ceiling on yourself. Just
Yeah, I think that's really what's most important.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what's most important, is that you don't put a cap on your capacity to impact people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
once you know that this is how much I can do, let numbers follow as a consequence. You know, when your purpose is to make an impact, let numbers follow as a consequence. And if at a point of time you realize that I'm constantly working on my journey of impact, right? But the numbers stop coming at a certain point of time. You know, it's not going to be. It's not going to be like perennially growing.
Yeah.
It's an illusion.
Yeah, 100%.
It's an illusion to think that things will perennially grow, eternally be on the, you know,
Upward
track. Doesn't work that way. There will be a limit at a certain point of time. What I'm trying to say is, when we're talking of the capping limits, we are talking about knowing what our capacity is. You know what? When you push yourself beyond your capacity, you know that you're doing it at the cost of other things that are that matter to you. Correct? When you're functioning within your optimum capacity, you're doing it with proper attention to what needs attention. So I see people getting consumed by this thing that I want to at any cost be there. I won't sleep, I won't eat, I don't care a damn. Religion doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is numbers and money. You know? So as soon as that's what you're consumed by, then you realize that that's not how it functions. So when you know that I've grown to X now, correct? And now I want to grow to X plus 100 or X, or say, let's say 100X, correct? If I want to go from X to 100X, if X to 100X is my capacity, then it will come in a certain way that I don't have to compromise on other aspects of my life. If 100X is not my capacity, then I know that I'm going to have to compromise on so many other aspects of my life because it's not within the bandwidth that I have. You know what I mean? That's what I kind of...
100%. So it's one of those things I'm learning slowly with time, honestly.
Yeah, I think
and this interview...
all of us do learn.
Yeah, this podcast actually added that one layer to my head. I have like 2 final questions for you. The first question is that if you had the ability to give 5 books to every single human being in the world, which 5 books would it be?
Okay.
I'll ask you the second question later.
Okay. The first book, of course, I would give the Bhagavad Gita. It's a great book because it's something that, you know, people way of living. The second book I would give is Journey Home, which is the journey of my guru. Radhanath Swami wrote that Radhanath Swami wrote that book. It's his journey into India and his life lessons. It's a beautiful read. The third book that I would give is Why Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. It's an incredible read on leadership. The fourth book that I would give is Positive Personality Profile Types by Robert Rom, which helps you analyze your personality type in great detail and then helps you work on yourself to come up to your optimum capacity that we were discussing. Fifth book, the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata. You know, again, when I talk about the Gita and the Mahabharata, I spoke about three other books, but the Mahabharata and the Gita, completely removing the religious connotation, but looking at it as a way of life, and specifically the Mahabharata, because that book goes beyond black and white. That book goes beyond right or wrong, which is life. We were talking about those ethical dilemmas, right? So it's so close to real life. When you read that book, it's not like there's an answer straight away given to you, but it's like you can start to connect to your own journey and slowly figure those answers out. So yeah, probably this would be the 5 names. Yes.
100%. So, and my last question to you in this entire podcast is, you have an idea of what we do in this space.
Sure.
And I think you got to know me a little bit through
Yes,
this.
indeed.
What would you like to tell me that you'd like, if we never meet again in our lives, what is the one wisdom I can take from you?
You're doing an amazing job. Keep doing it. You're doing an incredible job. Keep doing it. Have people over, share this wisdom, share the knowledge that you have, share your journey, and there'll be someone out there who may be benefited and may start that journey simply by seeing what you're doing and learning from what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Means
All
a
the
lot.
best. All the best.
Huge honor. Of course, I'll be linking sir's handles down below. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow. A little bit overwhelmed on a personal level by this podcast, sir, but in a good way. Genuinely appreciate all the wisdom that we've actually shared with the world on this podcast. Thank you for coming, sir. This meant a lot.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.